Hi students, welcome back to class. Let's start women's writing. I know that some of you have opted for this paper, so let's start from the beginning. Let's see some of the basic concepts in gender studies and then we shall move to women's writing. So there are many terms which we generally use in our day-to-day life, but we have to know more about it. So let's try to understand the meanings of these terms and let's go to women's studies. So let's come to the general concept, basic concepts in gender studies. So I've taken here gender studies only because gender studies is an it's an inclusive term. So in that we can see many other concepts also studied. So it's again an interdisciplinary academic field. So nowadays we hear a lot about gender studies. It's not completely confined to women's studies. So it can actually include women's studies, men's studies, and queer studies. I don't know many of you are aware of a particular brand of studies called men's studies. We have that also. So this particular discipline called gender studies, it studies women's studies, men's studies, and queer studies. So it's an interdisciplinary academic field devoted to analyzing gender identity and gendered representation. There is difference between gender and sex, so we'll try to know that. So how gender is analyzed, how that is represented, gender is represented. So all those things will be studied in gender studies. So one thing I have to tell you again about gender studies is that it's an inclusive branch. That means it does not exclude other branches. It studies about women. It studies about men. It studies about even the third gender. So LGBTQ, all those things will come under gender studies. So gender is not just confined to man and woman. Now we have third gender also. So it is again an all comprehensive branch of study which will be dealing with the gender. So it can speak about gender disparity, it can speak about the distribution of power, it can speak about the privileges of gender, many things which are related to this gender will be studied under this broad category, gender studies. So I'm just narrowing it down to other studies, women's studies. So it's again an academic field. You know, you have to study women's writing now. It's an academic field that draws on feminist and interdisciplinary methods in order to place women's lives and experiences at the center of study. So in women's studies, the focus is on women's lives and experiences. It is focus is on the lives of women and their experiences. So it uses feminist theories, it uses feminist methods, it uses even other methods from other disciplines also. That's why it is mentioned that it's an academic field that draws on feminist and interdisciplinary methods. It examines social and cultural constructs of gender. You all might have heard at least that gender is a construct, social construct. So women's studies, it examines how gender is constructed, how it is constructed in a society, how the cultural aspects are responsible for the construction of the particular category of gender, systems of privilege and oppression, how different systems of oppression and privilege work on the women, and how women's lives and experiences are represented in such a network of oppression and power. And it will also study the relationships between power and gender and as they intersect with other identities and social locations such as race, sexual orientation, socio-economic class, and disability. So we cannot actually uniformly bring all women under one particular category because women studies has to consider Other aspects such as race, sexual orientation, socio-economic class, disability, so many of these things have to be considered. Then only women's studies can be studied from a broader perspective. So all this, how these facets, how these identities also work in the lives of women, how women's experiences are studied. So all those things will come under women's studies. Queer studies, this is again another branch of study which is gaining momentum in the 20th and the 21st centuries. So it's again called sexual diversity studies also. Many of you might have heard about LGBT, okay, LGBT studies, or again, so LGBTQ, that is what we usually say. So it speaks about the study of issues relating to sexual orientation and gender identity, usually focusing on lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, gender, gender dysphoria, that is gender dysphoria, asexual, queer, questioning, intersex people and cultures. So I'll be explaining these terms in the course of this lecture. So here I have to tell you students, it is LGBTQ studies. Okay, so it will be focusing on the study of issues related to sexual orientation. So LGBTQ, that is primarily based on sexual orientation. I cannot say all categories are based on sexual orientation. At least some of these categories are based on sexual orientation, and that will help us to understand the gender identity, and this will help us to know more about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and gender dysphoria. So, gender dysphoria may be a term that is new to you. So, gender dysphoria is actually meaning, it actually means it's a feeling of discomfort or distress that might occur in people whose gender identity differs from their sex assigned at birth or sex. That means a child may be born as a boy or a girl, but later the child may, as the child grows up, maybe in adolescent or adult stage, the child does not feel comfortable with the category of the biological category of the sex he or she is born. So there may be some kind of a disturbances mentally or physically. So all those things will bring that feeling of discomfort, that is called gender dysphoria. Okay, queer is again some strange or some different way of sexual orientation or different perception of sexual identity. So then all those things will come under that. I'll be explaining some of the basic concepts later. So these are the major facets in queer studies. So one thing I have to tell you again is that under gender studies, even men's studies will also come. I have not actually included men's studies here, since all of you, that is women only, have chosen this particular uh, paper, the specialization. So I have not actually brought men's studies, but that will also come under gender studies. So gender studies is again a comprehensive term. It's an all-inclusive term. That is what I have to tell you. So we are actually focusing down to women's studies. We are not focusing on the gender studies as a major term, or as a major concept, as an umbrella term. We are not focusing on in the course. So let's try to know about sex. Okay, we know that when a child is born, the first question that is asked is whether the child is a boy or a girl. Okay, and we usually see the messages, blessed with a baby boy, blessed with a baby girl. So at the birth itself, we know only two biological categories, that is either boy or girl. Okay, so that biological category, so that is what actually is the sex of the child. So one's sex as a man or woman is determined by anatomy. Okay? That means physical, biologically, what the child has based on the genitals the child has at the time of birth. Okay? So whether the child belongs to boy or girl will be determined. So it refers to the biological differences between males and females, such as the genitalia and genetic differences. So the genitals of the child, of the baby boy and the baby girl, will make us understand whether the child belongs to the category of boy or girl. So it's basically biological difference. Okay, so here it is called anatomy in the sense, it related to the body. Okay, so that is sex speaks about actually the biological difference, anatomical difference, physiological things are also there along with the anatomical differences. So that is what sex is. Okay, so when a child is born, we usually see a child with either boys male's genitals or with the girls genitals, female's genitals. But there are some cases in which a child may have a mixture of both. Okay, a mixture of female and male genitals. Such exceptional cases are also there, so that complicates. We know that a baby uh, boy, that is a man, will have XY chromosome and a girl will have XX chromosome, but there may be some differences. So this is again completely biological. That is what I have to tell you. Okay? And then let's speak about and there is a concept called gender non-conforming, because I have already told you a person's genetically assigned sex does not line up with the gender identity. Okay, so that is these individuals might refer to themselves as transgender, non-binary, or gender non-conforming. A person is genetically born, that is biologically a person is born as a boy, but uh, that does not conform to the gender identity of the child. Okay, identity of the boy. So then that person may belong to the group of gender non-conforming. So let me speak more about gender, then you will be able to understand it very clearly. Gender denotes the social and cultural role of each sex within a given society. So when a boy is born, there are certain roles imposed on the boy by the society. When a girl is born, also when a girl not immediately after the birth, when the girl is brought up in the society, so a girl has certain cultural roles. That means as a woman, man has certain cultural roles, and woman also has certain cultural roles. So that actually denote gender specifically denotes the social and cultural role of both man and woman within a given society. Rather than being purely assigned by genetics, as such differences generally are, people often develop the gender roles in response to their environment, including family interactions, the media, peers, and education. So, if I have to elaborate that term, you know that boys behave in such and such, they have certain norms of behavior, girls have certain norms of behavior, girls have certain style of dressing, boys have certain style of dressing. So there are actually some kind of conditioning in the mind of both boys and girls. So this kind of a conditioning will help them to understand the gender identity or the roles imposed on by them by the society. So that may be imposed on them by the cultural aspects of the society. Okay, so even um, the social categories of the society, so all those things will be imposing certain things. We usually think that in the western world, usually people associate with pink color with the girls and the blue color with the boys. So boys will be wearing, baby boys will be uh, given a blue dress only. That means the blue kind of uh, wear only, costume only. But baby girls will be uh, even pink. So it's again a concept only. That this is again how that particular society thinks that this color should be associated with the boys and this color should be associated with the girls. So that kind of a concept. Otherwise, if you just think about the way girls are brought up. Okay, we know that girls are brought up and they are brought up in such a way that they should be quiet, they should be obedient, they should not be very outspoken. So certain things are brought up, imposed on them. So that all those things they are actually the part of imposing the gender identity on them. And if we just think about masculine and feminine, okay, so we expect feminine notions or femininity from female. So we have actually conditioned, or we have tried to define, the society has tried to define what exactly is femininity. Okay, it's not, it cannot be completely defined, but again, certain attributes are put as feminine. So this feminine aspects are supposed to be imparted to girls. Okay, girls, women are supposed to be feminine, men are supposed to be masculine. So such and such feelings are again put to men, and such and such feelings, such and such attributes are put to women. So this is again the concept of gender. Okay, so gender will actually decide, okay, how a girl has to behave, how a boy has to behave, what a man has to do, what a woman has to do, in what should be the role of a man, what should be the role of a woman. So all those things are decided by gender. Okay, so I hope you understood that. Okay, I mean, again, let's come to the explanation of WHO. Gender refers to the socially constructed characteristics of women and men, such as norms, roles, and relationships of and between groups of women and men. It varies from society to society and can be changed. So, there are some constructed characteristics of women. For example, if you think about our Indian society, we think that it's the responsibility of women to cook. So cooking and doing the daily chores in the home, all those things will be, household chores will be done by women. Okay, so that is actually uh, the role imposed on women. So these are so if a woman does not know cooking, that means she does not actually fit into the role that is imposed on her. So even uh, very renowned women who have made a mark in other fields, even they are asked this question whether they cook well or not. Okay, so we have actually tried to narrow down a woman's category, or that we have tried to impose the role of a cook on woman. So that is again a part of gendering. Okay, so I hope you understood that. So it varies from, so these things vary from society to society. All societies need not think that women have to do only these things, men have to do these roles. So nowadays actually we are trying to mix, we are trying to share the roles of both men and the women. So society is changing. Let me take you to the definition of Simone de Beauvoir. Okay. Simone de Beauvoir, a famous French feminist. Okay, I mean her seminal work, Second Sex, it actually made a lot of impact in the studies of feminism. So she speaks about uh, woman, that how actually woman is again girl is born. Okay, girl or boy is born. So one actually is one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. So that shows actually the concept of gender here. Okay? So biologically one may be a boy or a girl, but as time passes, there are many concepts imposed on her, many roles imposed on her, many a lot of conditioning on her. So that actually makes her a woman. So a woman should be this, a man should be this. So such and such thoughts are there. So it is civilization as a whole that produces this creature, which is described as feminine. Okay? So we'll come to that. By this cultural process, the masculine in our culture has come to be widely identified as active, dominating, adventurous, rational, creative. Okay, and so this is what we usually speak about masculine. So a masculine, and then a man is supposed to have all these characteristics. Then only we can call that man having that masculine characteristics. So a masculine in our culture, so that means he is active. One, a man who is active, so he will have that masculine trait, and he should be able to dominate others. Okay, that means the domineering personality should be there, and he should be adventurous. He is rational, he'll be creative. So these are some of the characteristic features we connect to the concept of masculinity. Okay? So let's see what femininity is. Okay, so what should be femininity? So by systematic, it should is again opposition to such traits has come to be identified as passive. So if man is active, woman should be passive. So it is just the opposite of man's trait. Okay, and man is dominating and woman should be docile, acquiescent. Okay, then adventurous. Man is adventurous means man is bold. So woman should be very timid only. And man is rational, then woman is emotional. Okay, and when man tries to be creative, woman tries to be conventional. So the opposite of all the masculine traits are put on the feminine category. So this is how actually the society has tried to define femininity and masculinity. This is how society has tried to speak about masculine and feminine. So here we can see the concept of othering. Whatever man has, okay, that belongs to the category of man only. Whatever man, whatever that is woman lacks, okay, so that will be uh, in the category of woman. So a lack of she will actually come under the category of, okay, the other. Whatever that is not man, that will come to the category of woman. Okay, so this uh, other, that is, here we can see, okay, man is not emotional, man is rational. So whatever he does not have, it will come to the category of woman. So this category usually symbolizes a negative connotation. That will again speak about a negative connotation. Okay, that is what we see here. I'll come to the concept of othering again in the classes which follow. And let me just take you to the concept of sexual orientation. If I have to speak about LGBTQ and all, we have to understand what is sexual orientation. So this is taken from Wikipedia. Sexual orientation is an enduring pattern of romantic or sexual attraction or a combination of this to persons of the opposite sex or gender, the same sex or gender, or to both sexes or more than one gender. Okay, so sexual orientation is based on the sexual attraction. It may be a romantic attraction also, or it may be a combination of sexual and romantic attraction. That may be for a person may feel sexual attraction or romantic attraction to a person of his own sex, okay, or to a person of opposite sex, or he or she may feel to both, to his own sex, to opposite sex, okay, or to the other one. So that is why he may feel it for the person who belongs to the same gender also, or to the opposite gender, or to both. So these attractions are generally subsumed under heterosexuality, homosexuality, and bisexuality. Asexuality is also identified as the fourth category. So according to sexual orientation, we have brought different categories. One category is heterosexuality, the next one homosexuality, and bisexuality, and the last one is again asexuality. Asexuality is also put under it according to the recent studies. Okay, uh, so let's come to heterosexuality. Hetero means different. Okay, so heterosexuality is again the romantic attraction or sexual attraction or sexual behavior that is associated with it to persons of the opposite sex or gender. For example, a boy may get attracted to girl. A girl may also feel attracted to boy. So there may be a sexual attraction between a man and a woman. In the same way, there may be a sexual attraction between woman and man. That is what we see in a society. That is a basic concept in a society. That is a basic part of a family relationship. Okay, it's again that is approved by religion, then again the social institutions. So this has been something approved over the centuries by social institutions, okay, various social institutions. So heterosexuality, it also refers to a person's sense of identity based on those attractions, related behaviors, and membership in a community of others who share those attractions. So I mean, what a person feels about himself. So how does he understand himself? What is the identity of him or her? So that also is understood in terms of heterosexuality. For example, a man may not have sexual relationship with a woman. Okay, a man, no, but a man understands himself in terms of his sexual orientation by getting by understanding that he does not have, he has feelings only for the other what do you say, group. So it also refers, that is why it also refers to a person's sense of identity based on these attractions, related behaviors. There are behaviors related to man, there are behaviors related to woman, and how they live in the society. All those things are based on actually the heterosexual or the sexual orientation they have. Okay? So, and we usually say that somebody who is heterosexual is referred to as a straight person. Okay? So, for example, if a person does not have, if a man does not feel attracted to woman, and if a man does not have any kind of sexual or romantic feeling for woman, he will not be able to get married to a person of opposite sex. So he, these days we see even same sex marriages also. This is again because of their sexual orientation. Okay, so they may not actually feel sexual liking or a sexual attraction to people of their own people of the opposite sex. Instead they may feel sexual attraction to people of their own sex. So that is what happens. So so I hope you understood. Okay, so this is the basic sexual orientation that is again uh, supported by the society, and this is what actually results in procreation. Every religion approves of heterosexuality. Now let's come to homosexuality. This is again romantic attraction or sexual attraction or sexual behavior between members of the same sex or gender. Okay, people who have who share the same, they share same sexual feelings for the people of the same group. Okay, the same sex. So that is again homosexuality. So those who are homosexual may cannot actually successfully enter into a heterosexual relationship, but that also actually we see. So it's again a kind of romantic attraction for the same people of the same sex. And bisexuality, this is a highly confusing term. Okay, so it's again romantic attraction, sexual attraction or sexual behavior toward both males and females, or to more than one sex or gender. That means this person, a bisexual, may have heterosexual orientation, sexual orientation for the person who belongs to the opposite sex, and the sexual attraction for the person who belongs to the same sex also. That is why it is mentioned that romantic attraction or sexual attraction, romantic attraction, sexual attraction or sexual behavior toward both males and females. That is, a male may have sexual attraction for male, and the same male may have sexual attraction for female also, and the same person may have sexual attraction for even transgender also. Okay, so that is again bisexuality. It may also be defined as romantic or sexual attraction to people of any sex or gender identity, which is also known as pansexuality. So they actually need not have attraction only to the people of opposite sex or to the same sex, but they can feel to the transgender, that identity also. So the term bisexuality is mainly used in the context of human attraction to denote romantic or sexual feelings toward both men and women. So such people, that means this bisexuality implies that human attraction will be there, or that means romantic or sexual feelings will be there for both men and women. So in the context of human attraction, we use this term to speak about romantic or sexual feelings toward both men and women. A bisexual identity does not necessarily equate to equal sex attraction to both sexes. Commonly, people who have a distinct but not exclusive sexual preference for one sex over the other also identify themselves as bisexual. So it does not mean that one will have equal sexual attraction to the opposite sex. Okay, that means one will have sexual attraction to opposite sex. One will have the same person will have sexual attraction to the same sex, but that is equal. That does not mean that. Okay, so they may not have uh, exclusive sexual preference for one sex. That means they will have sexual attraction for only opposite sex. That kind of a meaning is not there. Okay? There are people who have both heterosexual feelings. Okay, there are people who have heterosexual orientation and homosexual orientation. Okay, so those people will come under that bisexual category. Next, let's come to asexuality. Asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction to others or low or absent interest in or desire for sexual activity. So, such people may not have sexual attraction to people of their own sex or to people of opposite sex. So, it does not actually mean celibacy, taking the vow of celibacy, or remaining bachelor. That is not the thing. It's again biologically or physiologically they don't feel that kind of an attraction. Okay, so that is again the term asexuality. Some people who may have heterosexual interest may also just observe celibacy as a part of the religious order, but that is not asexuality. Okay, asexuality is again the lack of sexual interest, sexual attraction for others. It may be considered a sexual orientation or the lack thereof. Okay, and next, let me just take you to the concept of sexual identity. Sexual identity is how one thinks of oneself in terms of to whom one is romantically or sexually attracted. So, if I say that is in heterosexuality, in the concept of heterosexuality, people who have attraction for opposite sex, okay, they have attraction for opposite sex only. So, such people are usually called straight. So, that actually determines the sexual identity of the person. So, sexual identity is how one thinks of oneself, how a man thinks of himself, how a woman thinks of herself in terms of to whom one is romantically or sexually attracted. Okay. Sexual identity may also refer to sexual orientation identity, which is when people identify or disidentify with a sexual orientation or choose not to identify with a sexual orientation. So it's again related to sexual orientation only. So a person will be able to understand whether the person is heterosexual or homosexual based on the sexual orientation he or she has. Okay, so that will determine the sexual identity of the person. So based on his or her sexual attraction, he will be able to understand whether he or she is heterosexual or homosexual. Okay. Let me take you to the other terms. Lesbian, okay, LGBTQ. This is a uh, term we usually use in our life. Okay, and we know about the pride of LGBTQ. We have seen all those things. Okay, all over the world they have that vibrant color, the pictures, flag being raised, and how they show their pride. So you know all that. So that actually shows that the sexual orientation cannot be completely confined to the binary, just to the two categories. Okay, or also it can actually be more than that. The spectrum of sexual identities are actually a spectrum of sexual identities can be seen in that flag, the colors of the flag. Uh, Lesbian, so we know that it's again somebody who has a homosexual uh, relationship, again woman, it's specifically related to woman. Okay, a homosexual woman. This term actually comes from the word lesbos, that is the place of uh, Sappho, the Greek poetess who lived in 6th century BC. Greek poetess Sappho had sexual orientation for uh, people of her own sex. So from that actually this particular term has come, and it prefers mostly or exclusively women as romantic or sexual partners. So lesbian actually means one who prefers woman, a woman who prefers woman as the romantic or sexual partners. Okay. Next term is again gay, and I have to tell you some things about lesbian. This lesbianism was not at all approved. Society is now changed. Okay, society is now approving of homosexual relationships. Okay, it is now approving of different gendered identities. Okay, we know all those things. So it did not actually approve of lesbian relationships over the past many centuries, but things have changed. So even in the ancient period also there were lesbian tendencies. Okay, so that's why I told you about Sappho, the Greek poetess who had that homosexual interest, homosexual orientation. And now gay, the next term is gay, LG, okay, homosexual man. Gay actually that word means happy, carefree, um, so that kind of a person. So it again it came to be used specifically to a person, a man who has sexual orientation to person of his own sex. It means a man who has sexual interest in man. Okay? A man who likes sexual intimacy or romantic intimacy with another man. So that is again gay. And bisexual. Bisexual is a person who is sexually or romantically attracted to people of two or more genders. I've already told you about bisexuality. So a man may feel romantic interest for both man and woman, and he may feel romantic feel interest to a transgender also. Okay, so that is the difference here. Bisexual people are attracted to people of the same and of the other genders, including transgender people. So this is a quote by Eckler's words only. Ultimately, bisexual people have the capacity to love and be attracted to people of all genders. They are not actually confining themselves to any particular sex. Okay, they have the capacity to be attracted, sexually attracted to people of all genders. Okay, so even man, woman, third gender, so they are able to get attracted to people of all genders. Biologically, bisexual can mean people who have organs of both male and female. Such exceptional cases are there. So biologically, they can be the people who have both male and female genitals. Next term in that LGBTQ is transgender. Okay, transgender people have a gender identity or gender expression that differs from the sex that they were assigned at birth. Some transgender people who desire medical assistance to transition from one sex to another identity as transsexual. Okay, so they actually so for example, a boy is born. Okay, so biologically he is a boy. But as he grows up, he does not feel comfortable with the gender roles imposed on him. Okay, and he does not actually uh, identify himself as a boy. Somehow he thinks that okay, he does not have, he's not like a boy, he's like a woman only. He has to be a woman. So, like a girl, he feels like a girl. So he does not feel a kind of comfort with the identity of a boy imposed by the society on him. Okay, so his psychological sense of his own gender is not compatible with the biological category of biological category. Okay, it means a boy does not feel comfortable with the concept of identity with the, he does not feel like being a boy, he does not feel like continuing a boy, he does not want to be a boy, and he thinks that he is a girl, and he likes to be a girl, he likes to wear girls dress, he likes to behave like girl, he likes to what to say, show things like girl, he likes to do things like a girl. So, and even the dress also he wears like a girl. So that kind of a thing we can find sometimes in some people. And as they grow up also, they may see some kind of hormonal changes in them, some kind of hormonal changes, even the organs also seem to be different. So such changes they feel. So that is why they seek medical assistance to transform from one sex to another, because they do not completely belong to the category of the they do not completely belong to the biological category to which they are born. So they seek medical assistance to be changed to the another category. So those people are again transsexual. Transgender, often shortened as trans, is also an umbrella term, in addition to including people whose gender identity is the opposite of their assigned sex. So biologically that person is a man, but the gender identity of that person is not actually masculine identity. Instead, he behaves like a female, okay, a feminine identity he tries to take. So, such people are also brought under the category of transgender. There are people who may have some kind of hormonal changes, some of the other kind of changes in them. Okay, they may think that even some organs also seem to be changed, so they don't feel comfortable in their gender identity, and then they seek medical assistance and get operated and change to the other sex. Okay, so they become transsexual in that way. That is, that they are changed to another. And there are people who are not able to cope with the gender identity imposed on them. So one can be medically, what is it? They can seek medical assistance and they can change. The other one, they may not get medical assistance, but they may not change, but they may behave like the person who belongs to the other gender. Okay, so the gender identity they assume will be different. And next one is Q. Queer is an umbrella term for sexual and gender minorities who are not heterosexual or are not cisgender. So cisgender is again a term that indicates that person who is born as a male. Okay, he is comfortable with the identity imposed on him. So if suppose, that means that is again related to that one who has that straight behavior. Okay, so suppose a boy is born, a child is born as a boy, and that boy is brought up as a boy, and he does not have any feeling of discomfort of being brought up as a boy, being no, he does not feel any kind of a discomfort on the gender identity imposed on him also. So that person is cisgender. When woman also, okay, she is okay with that. So that is cisgender. And so it's again, so this is again, queer is an umbrella term for sexual and gender minorities who are not heterosexual. Okay, so they may not come under the category of heterosexual. So the queer actually means strange or peculiar. So we cannot actually categorize them into homosexual or it's not easy. So it's a kind of questioning. Okay, a questioning, it's again questioning kind of a thing only. So it is used pejoratively against those with same sex desires or relationships in the late 19th century. So before that, late 19th century, we use the term queer to speak about people who have the same sex desire, okay, or same sex relationships. In the 21st century, queer became increasingly used to describe a broad spectrum of non-conformative sexual and gender identities and politics. So 21st century, that is by the end of 19th century, okay, almost in the late 19th century, the term queer was used to speak about people who have same-sex desires or same-sex relationships. But in the 21st century, this particular term came to be used to describe a broad spectrum, okay, spectrum of non-normative sexual behavior. Whatever we actually say that something is normative and something is not normative. So those people who have non-normative sexual and gender identities and politics, those people will come under the category of queer. Heterosexual is a normative behavior. Okay. Homosexual, it was a non-normative behavior, but now it's also taken as a normative. It is also getting legal sanction. So it is also changing. The perception of homosexuality is also changing. But heterosexuality has always been thought of as a normative behavior that follows the norms, normative. Okay, the behavior, sexual behavior that does not follow norms, that is non-normative sexual behavior. So in that way, the queer was considered as a non-normative sexual behavior. Okay, so with that, I'm concluding today's class. Actually, all these concepts are the basics of gender studies. I'm not telling that these we will get questions from these concepts. You are not going to get any question for examination. I don't think that we will get, but I think that you need to know all those things. That is why I introduced the basic concepts in gender studies. So let's continue women's writing. Okay, maybe in the next class I'll bring with other theories of women's studies. So I just want you to know these concepts which are widely in use in the current society. So all of you take care, stay safe at home. Bye.